Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our transfer series, joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. The Edu shirt is back. The Edu shirt is in service because Arsenal have closed on their next signing. Oleksandr Zinchenko, we're going to talk a lot about him more in just a moment. Without further ado, though, please do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are indeed new around here with those notifications turned on so you never, ever miss a show. The show yesterday with Harry Simew for our weekly Canton and Simew catch-up. We talked a lot about Zinchenko right before, obviously, the big announcements drop. It's what happens. It's what happens on this channel. You know, we talk about things, we discuss topics, and then obviously what happens is they actually happen straight afterwards as well. Goodness me. Let's go into the chat box and jump to say good morning to people. Simon, good morning to Blackshine, to Kaiser, Morgie, Matt G, good morning. Nick, Gunnar, Greg, NSW, Chris, Yule. I'm assuming Yule. That might be right. I hope it is. Harvey, good morning to you, to Lynn, to Temi, to Simon, to Damien, to Ife, to Jose, Harvey as well. Stay safe in the UK and the rest of Europe. Here in the north of Sweden, it's around 21 degrees. Keep drinking and stay in the shadows. Yeah, goodness me, it's warm. I think I took for granted, I take for granted now how I don't have to wear shirts every day for work, because it is a killer. So respect to everybody that is wearing shirts to work, because it is just not a bit of me right now. I remember having to teach in these kind of conditions was a joke. So, yeah, disgusting. But Edu has not got a problem wearing shirts when he's making signings, and that is exactly what he is doing this transfer window. Let's crack on with today's stories. As always, first of all, we tell you to go and subscribe to the Arsenal Way. I'll be live over there at 10 a.m. as usual with the boys, discuss Zinchenko and, of course, plenty more as well. But our first story of the day has to revolve around the greatest kit launch for the greatest kits ever created by Adidas. Amazing away kit that I ordered almost immediately yesterday, and that will be arriving hopefully very soon. I also ordered, and to be honest, I never ever buy like merch, like quote unquote merch from the club. I only ever buy the shirts, the actual strips. But the black T-shirt with the AFC logo on it had to be a purchase. I'm sorry, but it is. I'm not going to sit here and start moaning about merchandise and Cronky's pockets and all of that. If you enjoy something, go and buy it. That's what I say. And I certainly did enjoy seeing plenty of what was on offer from Arsenal yesterday. So I hope that you're getting hold of your Arsenal away kit, because it is quite the looker. I think we can all agree. I've left a poll in the chat box, a very unbiased poll, of course. I think you've got 4 options. The question was, vote on what you think. Is this the best away kit of all time? The options being yes, of course, definitely, and no. Only joking. Of course it is. They were your options. So make sure you vote on today's poll to make sure you give an unbiased view as to what you think of the kit. Now, Marcelo Flores, we talked about yesterday, is garnering interest from the MLS. However, reports yesterday suggested also that what we've got is a player that is also suggesting there is also interest from Championship teams and from European teams, and that Arsenal are potentially working on a loan deal that could see him leave in the next 5 days or so. So that's going to be interesting to see where he obviously goes and where he might end up as well. But I'm looking forward to seeing Marcelo Flores play senior football, because for me, he was the most highly regarded talent in the youth academy. To my understanding, the club certainly rated it as the most highly regarded talent beyond Charlie Patino, or rather behind Charlie Patino. Charlie Patino obviously standing out, but behind him, Marcelo Flores was the standout candidate, not Amari Hutchinson, perhaps telling us why they were more willing to allow him. I say allow him. They didn't really have much of a choice. I don't think they were ever willing to match what the proposal was from Chelsea. So, but Marcelo Flores, MLS or Europe, we're going to see plenty of him play senior football, it seems, next season, which is great. Now, following Balogun has also been garnering interest. Championship teams and teams in the Bundesliga have interest in trying to sign the striker on loan for next season. It's much more likely now that he moves on. Arsenal signing Gabriel Jesus, renewing Eddie Nketiah's contract. It just seems like the obvious The obvious way forwards for him is obviously to try and get him signed up to a situation where he's going to get the most minutes that he can and flourish, because that's obviously what we want him to do. And if he's going to develop, he's going to try and close that gap on the likes of Nketiah and Jesus, which is going to be very, very difficult now, especially considering that, you know, Nketiah has just signed that new deal on 100 grand a week, we are led to believe. So seeing this possibly happen is going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But what we're hoping is that we can see an improvement in following Balogun next season, so that he can return for 23-24, a player that can fight for his spot in the first team squad. Let's move forwards to Nuno Tavares, who we talked about as a potential move to Marseille was going to happen. The Portuguese wing-back or full-back, or however you want to look at him, looked as if a move to Marseille was the most likely destination. However, that has hit a bit of a stumbling block. Arsenal, and Tavares in particular, is not really willing, it seems, to make that move. The option to buy that Marseille wanted to include in the contract is not something that Arsenal are interested in including whatsoever. They don't want to lose Tavares for a very small fee, because, you know, he could go on loan and have an absolutely brilliant season. We just don't know. And you don't want to be in a situation like we was with Guendouzi or with Mavropanos, where you've put a tiny little option on their deal and you're getting money that is just not available, or rather just not worth the same as what their genuine value in the market is. So it does not look like, for the moment anyway, that Nuno Tavares will be joining Marseille, but could still be expected to leave, with Arsenal closing in on a potential new fullback for the coming Premier League season. Now, our penultimate story of the day is Youri Tielemans. It is reported by Football Insider that he is still desperate to make this move to Arsenal. He wants to join the club. He is holding out to join the club, and he is still very much pushing Arsenal to try and make that bid. This is just a very strange scenario. I say strange. I think I can make sense of it. In my mind, what Arsenal are doing is that they know pretty much guaranteed that they can get a hold of Youri Tielemans. It's not going to be a problem for them to put a bid in that Leicester will probably accept, and they'll get hold of him. I think that they have targets that are higher up on their list of priorities, and they are simply just not willing at this stage to commit fully to Tielemans, knowing that there are potentially options to get a better player on the market instead of him. That said, you know, he's of a level that I think if you can go and get someone like Youri Tielemans, you should just go and get him. I think he's a very, very good Premier League proven midfielder that would add a lot of quality to the team. If Arsenal prove me wrong and go out and sign a brilliant player, then sure. But I'm struggling to see who is going to fill that left-sided 8 role, other than Zinchenko, of course, who could come in and play it like Tielemans could. I think he's a very good option at a very good price. Arsenal, it just seems, are delaying this potential deal because they know they can look elsewhere. So we will see what indeed does happen with that. Let's move on to Lisandro Martinez, who has joined Manchester United. It is here we go, as Fabrizio describes. Now, a report came out yesterday that I wanted to talk about and cover on this morning's show, because I tell you what, the misconceptions flying around the Premier League fandom and YouTube channels and discussion shows seem to think that he turns down Manchester United turns down Arsenal in favour of Manchester United. This is plainly untrue. Arsenal pulled out of this deal as soon as they found the levels of the price for Lisandro Martinez going to a certain level. As soon as they realised how high Ajax were willing to take that figure and how high Man United were willing to pay for the guy, they just absolutely aborted things well ahead, and then have got the lead on this Zinchenko deal and moved for an alternative target. So if you see anyone trying to claim wrongly that he turned down Arsenal in favour of Manchester United, this is factually untrue at this stage. Arsenal pulled out of the deal unwilling to match the asking price of what Ajax wanted, and Manchester United simply were willing to go to that level of fee, which is just simply not what he's worth. He's a good player. I liked him. I would have absolutely taken him at Arsenal, but not for 60 million euros. I mean, I've even seen suggestions the figure and the ultimate figure could be even higher than that. So, you know, to say that he's worth that amount of money, he just isn't worth that amount of money. And to get Zinchenko for £30 million instead is a very, very good move by the club. Just imagine that you could get Zinchenko for half the price of Martinez. You know, and we wanted to play Lisandro Martinez at left back. That was the understanding. So to get a player that's actually more naturally a left back than him at half the price, possibly less than half the price, and Premier League experience and still below his prime years at the top level is a very good move for Arsenal indeed. And now moving on to the main man and the reason for our Ukrainian strip of colour today on the thumbnail for the show. Arsenal have agreed a deal with both Manchester City and now Zinchenko. He is expected to join Arsenal on a 4-year deal. There could potentially be room for an option of a further year in that. In terms of wages, we're still not sure. The final figure is set to be £30 million with £2 million in additional bonuses. That £30 million will not be paid up front. We imagine it will be structured with those £2 million extra in bonuses. But Zinchenko is going to be joining Arsenal, it seems, 99% confirmed at this stage, and it will be a case of now him getting the green light to travel for his medical. That is what is expected to take place next. Whether or not that takes place in the US or England, there's been conflicting reports. Some had suggested that he would return to England to complete the move, whilst others have suggested he may just have his medical in the US. The logistics of the deal were still being sorted out late yesterday, so we can imagine that Zinchenko will rock up at Arsenal in the coming days. A very, very good move indeed. And that completes all of today's stories. Let's jump into the chat box and go through some of your questions after this quick break. I think that the internet is having the hamster is on the wheel, it seems, and not pedaling fast enough. So we may have to go to our Q&A screen, which is fine. But if you've got any questions for the chat box, now is your time to start throwing them in. Okay, let's try and tackle as many of your questions as we can from the chat box. Let's go to Hanks, who says, cue the clown saying we didn't want him anyway. Goodness me. Now, Hanks joined us in the comment section yesterday, was not happy with the way in which myself and Harry were talking about things. We did offer Hanks the opportunity to come onto the channel for a chat, but when he was asked for his contact details to come on the show, he's kind of swerved it. You know, he's that classic keyboard warrior. Manu says, could you compare the Tielemans situation to going to the club trying to pull a 10, knowing you can fall back on the 7 who's been eyeing you all night? That shirt would defo pull a 10. I mean, I did like to put out on social media yesterday that yeah, look, that shirt is wearable in almost all scenarios. I don't know how many places we're going to take this shirt. We're going to try and take pictures of this shirt in all different locations because it's just, I never, ever wear Arsenal shirts out. I just don't do it. Like, the only time I do it is to games or to watch, games if it's on somewhere like on a big screen or like something like that. But genuinely, this away shirt is one of the most casually acceptable kind of shirts that's out there. Connor, the new thumbnail, I mean, this thumbnail is purely for today's show, in fairness. It is just because of the Ukrainian side of things with Zinchenko, of course, joining us. But don't worry, some new designs are on the way. That's all I'll say. I'll just tease you with that. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen for our new look for next season. Rahul says, Tom, as Arteta and educational... well, I understand what you mean. I was educational. I was like, what? Now I understand what you mean. Are buying young, talented players for the long term, 3 to 5 seasons. Does this discourage our young Hale End Academy players to stay in Arsenal due to a lack of opportunities? Potentially, we could see someone like him, like those young players, find a problem in joining the first team. But I don't think it's necessarily something we should concern ourselves with. Arsenal need to be ruthless. Arsenal need to be in a situation whereby they have the best possible players to put them towards the biggest titles and trophies. We can't be willingly opening the doors to every youth talent that comes through. If Arsenal can go and sign a player that's going to progress them forwards and push them towards titles, which is what we obviously want to see them do, that's what we need to focus on. That's what we need to be ensuring that we see happening. So, to be honest, it does not affect me in any way not seeing all of these Hale End graduates get that chance, because Arsenal need to, in my opinion, buy better players to position themselves better to compete for the top trophies. Let's go to Jelly Pig, who says, what are realistic expectations for the league position silverware next season? Personally, I think we should push to win the Europa League and top 4. A domestic trophy would also be lovely. I think you're pretty much spot on. The minimum next season has to be qualifying for the Champions League. Absolute minimum. If we don't qualify for the Champions League, there's going to be some very difficult conversations at the end of the season about the managerial position. But, we need to push as high as feasibly possible. I don't want to sit here and say, yeah, 4th place, that is the expectation. For me, I think we need to be pushing. Thanks, Fido. Wow, Hank says his expectation is 7th for next season. I think you need to raise your standards, mate, to be honest. Equally Different says Zinchenko as the main midfield signing. Happy with that. I think we need one more in midfield. I said at the start of the window that Arsenal needed to sign 2 midfielders this season. I think we need the extra midfielder. If we aren't going to go and get one, I think I would be disappointed indeed. Alex says, if Arsenal had signed Rafinha, do you think Arteta would have played him on the left or moved Saka back to the left-hand side? I think had we have signed Rafinha, Saka would have played alongside Rafinha on the left, as you say. Now we don't really know what wide player Arsenal are going to be going for. We talked yesterday about the idea of, the Jarrod Bowens of this world, but you aren't going to get these players for like 80 odd million quid. And you're really going to spend 80 million pounds on a player that's going to compete and not even start over Bukayo Saka? No. Arsenal went to around 40 million pounds in that region and were willing to go that high for Rafinha. They were never willing to match the 60 odd million that Chelsea were willing to go to. They just didn't value him at that price. And to be honest, it didn't make too much sense for that side of things either. I think Arsenal can go and get a really good wide player, but they don't have to spend loads on it and compromise our ability to maybe add someone in the midfield. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Hiss says, good damn. Is that maybe that's something from in Polish that I don't know I'm aware of. How are you? I'm watching from Poland, Warsaw. Love your show. I enjoy it every single day. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate the kind words, as always. Hovik says, this is Arteta's team now. No more excuses. Go out and play hard. This team is totally different than the Emery days. I can't disagree. There cannot be excuses this season. And the thing is, I was talking to Harry about this yesterday. Arsenal needed to get themselves a squad where only the finger could be pointed towards Arteta. Last season, when we didn't get top 4, we missed out on the Champions League qualification. There were clear reasons for that. Partey, Tommy, Tierney, White, all getting injured in the last run-in of the campaign. Arsenal need to be in a position where if we lose players to injury, we have the quality cover to bring in and compete. I don't want backups. I want competitors. So that I'm not looking at, Tavares being a backup. I'm not looking at necessarily El Neni being the backup. Arsenal need to be in a position where they have the good quality players to come in and compete with those starters. So that if we get to the end of the season and we haven't qualified for the top 4, I can't sit and say, or no one else can sit and say, this player, that player. No. You've got a good enough squad that we could get into that top 4. We need to be in a position where we can point the finger solely at the management and the executives at the club, not because of misfortune. That's where we want to be. That's where we need to be. And I think we are getting very, very, very close to that stage with this squad. Stephen says, are you suggesting a backup for Saka? No, I'm suggesting a competitor. That's what's most important. Fido says, Tom, are you doing a podcast on Sunday morning? Probably because I'm not doing a show on a Thursday. The reason why I'm not doing a show on Thursday is because I'm doing an 8 p.m. till 4 a.m. shift covering the game against Orlando on Wednesday night, early hours of Thursday morning. So I will be sleeping all the way through Thursday morning. So I will try and make up for that by doing a show on Sunday to the best of my ability. So yes, there should be 2 shows for you over the weekend rather than just the usual one. Let's go to Carl, who says, Tom, fellow Gooners, do you think we should leave Jesus out of the team for Chelsea, given their previous history of friendlies and his value to start the season? Of course, we did lose Thomas Partey in the game against Chelsea last season. We lost him because of injury. Very frustrating to lose him, of course. Should we leave out Jesus? The answer is no, I don't think so. Injuries are part of football. Should we play him for the full 90 minutes? Probably not. We got enough players to use 2 teams. I don't think that we need to be risking anyone for more than 45 minutes at the moment. Pre-season's about fitness, building up, experimentation, standards, all of that stuff. But we don't need to be worrying about that necessarily. Let's go to Vishal, who says, Tom, does it make sense to go for Paqueta as a 10 now that we've got Zinchenko? This would, of course, mean pushing Vieira further up as a wide forward. What are your thoughts? I think that Paqueta is a player of a level of versatility that could come in and play left 8, could play at 10, could potentially play in a wide area. If you're going to put £50 million on an attacking player, I'm fine with it being someone like Paqueta. It's him and Milinkovic-Savic I only really look at as the players that I would stump up 50 million plus for this summer window. Rafinha, would I have gone that high? If it had happened, maybe I'd be singing off a different hymn sheet. But, in hindsight, going to the 60s, 70 million euros that it ended up costing to get hold of Rafinha, I'm a little bit held back in that because, of course, we have Bukayo Saka. If you say to me who starts at right wing against Crystal Palace, Rafinha or Saka, it's Saka without question. It'd be Saka, Martinelli, and Jesus for me starting that game, and still are starting that game come the first game of the season. Gooner David says, what about Saint-Maximin? For me, he's a lot of show and no-go. There needs to be more end products from Saint-Maximin before I would commit to a player like him. I also think Newcastle would charge a silly fee, to be honest. What about Maddison, says Faisal? Maddison will go for a very, very big fee. We're looking upwards of 50, 60 million pounds from Leicester, I think. And I just don't think that that's a deal that Arsenal are going to do this summer. We've already spent money on Vieira. We have Ødegaard. He isn't like Paqueta where he can play those roles in those wider positions as well. Yes, he can play the left 8, which is a position we need. Yes, he could play 10. But I think Paqueta's added versatility would make me lean more towards the Brazilian than getting Maddison right now. Let's go to Jesse, who says, no real rush for Tielemans. See what we can move out first. What funds are available to possibly get another 2 quality midfielders and a forward? Squad would start looking very impressive then. Look, I think that in terms of the Zinchenko situation, the Zinchenko deal in itself is one of those midfield positions. At the start of the season, I said I wanted 2 central midfielders. Zinchenko will fulfill one of those areas. His level that he puts in for Ukraine is a fantastic amount of quality that we see from him. He's Premier League level. I remember listening to an interview that Kyle Walker did where he talked about Zinchenko being in the top 3 players at Man City. This is a guy of genuine quality that you are going to see people underrate and overlook massively. You just wait. It's going to happen. Zinchenko is going to be talked down about. He's going to be written off. You're going to see people do it, both within the Arsenal fan base and outside of it. I look forward to them being proven wrong, certainly. Let's go to, is the lack of outgoings worrying me? Kuhl asks. To an extent, because obviously I would love to see more outgoings. But the thing is, with the players that we are going to see move on, we expect to see move on, they're going to happen towards the end of the window. There are players there that are not the type of players that get snapped up at the beginning of a transfer window. They're players that teams wait for opportunities for, because they aren't worth too much money. They aren't at the top of anyone's wish list. And as soon as they start losing out on their plan A, B, and C's, they're going to start coming to try and grab the players that unfortunately were signed by Edu and Wenger, and to a lesser extent, some of those players like Marie at the start of Arteta's tenure. But it is only Marie from that squad that you would say is part of that group. So I think that we've now learned a lot from the mistakes of the past in terms of our recruitment, and we've improved on things. If you look at this window, if we bring in Zinchenko, if we bring in another attacking player, you'd be looking at a very good 8 out of 10 plus, arguably more window. Last summer, the 6 signings that we made, again, you were looking at a solid 8 out of 10 window. And you start going back, and those windows and the ratings out of 10 for those windows are going down and down and down and down. You can see the progression and the quality of the recruitment that we've seen improve over the last 5 to 10 years. It has improved dramatically. Did a piece talking about how Jesus and the similarities to Alexis Sanchez, the signing that we made, both of them signing at 25 years of age, both of them coming from sides managed by Pep Guardiola previously. Of course, Alexis played his final year at Barca without Guardiola there. Both players coming from a position where they're taking that step into Arsenal in, moving into their prime, and potentially a player that would elevate those around him. Alexis certainly did that, and you can see the same thing from Jesus in a short space of time, how he raises the level of those about him. So that, I think, is, there's a lot of parallels between those two, and potentially we could see a similar type of impact of what we saw from Alexis with Gabriel Jesus, and I hope that is certainly the case. Alexis isn't what I would say would be a world-class player when he signed, but certainly in that first year at Arsenal, we tipped over into that world-class category. And Jesus, I think, is of a very similar level arriving at Arsenal. There were questions about whether or not he's yet world-class. Could certainly tip over into that level as well. Let's scroll up and see if we can find any more. Peter says, what's the FPL link? I did tweet out the FPL if you want to join our FPL league. So if you go over to the Gooner Talk TV on Twitter, you'll be able to find, if you scroll down, there will be a link for that. I will start putting it into the description as well. You probably just need to give me a nudge to remind me after the show. Manu says, top 3 priorities of extending contracts: Saka, Saliba, Gabriel, and Martinelli I'll squeeze in as a 4th as well. He's got to be up there too in terms of getting those contracts renewed. Alan says, is Zinchenko a Ukrainian James Milner, or is he better? Well, first of all, James Milner's 9 odd years older, but James Milner is also a very versatile player and a player that has won the Premier League and the Champions League, playing a lot of minutes for Liverpool. And Klopp leans on James Milner a hell of a lot. I wouldn't have signed him now, don't get me wrong, but players like that are integral to these types of teams. And that's why City have won trophies with players like Zinchenko in their team. And that's why Liverpool have won trophies with players like James Milner in their team. These types of figures, not only for their versatility and utility, but for their quality and for their leadership and for their kind of impact on the dressing room. These types of players are absolutely key. Sam says, Tom, when are you getting the new shirt, buddy? It's already bought. It's already done. It's on its way. It is in the mail. It will be arriving very, very soon. As soon as I get it, it will be worn on the morning show. Don't you worry. Thank you, Carl. Much appreciate the kind words. If you haven't already dropped a like on the video, I would really appreciate it. There's over 1,300 of you tuning in live. Thank you for the continued support on these morning shows. It means a hell of a lot. Thank you for the 99%, as always, for being brilliant in our chat box and being very supportive and open and respectful too. Let's go to... Sahil says, Tom, did you see the Sun's Martin's tweet on City Extra saying it says Zinchenko is still thinking if he should join Arsenal? I haven't seen that. I will certainly try and check it out after the stream. But as of yesterday, it was agreed personally and with the player as well about a potential move to the club. So, you know, we're 99% certain at this stage that it is going to happen. You know, personal terms agreed, deals agreed with Man City. It's a matter of time. It is at this stage. Let's go to Amiro, who says, morning, Tom. Knowing how notorious we are at doing deadline day signings, which position would you be okay with leaving till last, possibly January? Probably that wide position. You know, the versatile defender was absolutely key. A central midfielder is absolute priority. We needed to make sure that we had those done. So of those kind of 3, that was the player that I would have waited for until January, because if we have a lot of attacking players, it might mean that we keep Pepe or Nelson until January, or, you know, we just cut our ties with those players and say, look, you're going to be here for another year and you're going to go on a free. It might happen. I just don't think anyone's going to pay what Nicolas Pepe is worth because he's just on a ridiculous level of money every single week, and that is making it very difficult for Pepe to move on. Look, if we're being very, very honest about Pepe, he didn't fulfill that potential. He never ever fulfilled the expectation, and I really don't understand why we would continue on with him at this stage, other than the fact that his wages make it impossible for us to move him on. But there are a lot of players that are more suited to what we're doing right now, that are better in both coming off the bench, which Pepe has been doing a lot, and starting games. And ultimately, I just don't see Pepe being a player that is going to succeed. You're right, he does have the 2 years left on his deal, so maybe it means that we go down to the 1 year left on his contract and just have to accept that and take what we can get next summer for Pepe if he can't be moved on this summer. It might be that we can get him alone with an option. Sevilla said to be interested. There are also teams like Leicester and Everton also said to be interested in the player. Hopefully we can get something for him. You know, I just don't think that he's a player that was ever going to be of the level that we needed to take us to that next step. And that's it. We can all say that he didn't get enough opportunities, enough games, but even in those opportunities that he had, he very rarely took them, unfortunately. People use the goals and assists of his first season as some kind of barometer to say that he could have done, but the amount of stat padding that went on in the Europa League, like when you take away those stats and you look purely at the Premier League statistics, they aren't justifiable for the wages, for the money that we spent. Let's go to Igbo, who says, Tom, I suspect Arsenal might move for a Paqueta because he can play 5 positions, the left 8 and right 8 positions, and anywhere in the front 3, 10 left-sided, right-sided. Maybe we'll see Paqueta as a player that Arsenal go for a little bit later on. But according to The Athletic, it wasn't a player that we were really going for at this stage of the window, despite the fact that plenty of other places said that he was a player that we were looking at. Who knows at this stage? We will have to wait and see what happens between now and the end of the window. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be live at 10 a.m. over on the Arsenal Way. Link, as always, is in the link tree in the description. Thank you to the 99%. Absolute legends in the chat box joining us. As always, do drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. If you are new, we're closing in now on our next milestone. Thank you so much for helping us push towards that. It's been a genuine pleasure. It as always is. And yeah, we'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, before I go, did want to say that Sebastian Haller, we are thinking with you right now and hope that you recover from the situation that you're in as well. For those that don't know, if you go onto Dortmund's Twitter page, it will give you more information about what's happened. But yeah, we wish Sebastian Haller the absolute best. And I can't imagine what you're going through right now and hope that you have a swift recovery. Thank you, people. I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.